Hello! Looks like Vic is here. I will turn things down a wee bit. So it's another episode of Write Once, Read Many. This time covering chapter 22.6. Gonna just wait for another moment or two while people gather. We can look at the speed draw as it goes. I really like how it's drawing on so many of the previous artworks from, other chapters. We get, like, the reference images being pulled in and angled at different spots. I think that's really, really neat as it goes. And, I wouldn't have thought of Regent languidly leaning on Atlas, but that was just my lack of imagination. I now see the error in my ways. I really like this scene. I had told Vic this earlier today. I have mentioned it on past casts, but I really like it whenever there is a scene that you wouldn't expect to see. Like, I can imagine in my mind, I'm pretty sure I've seen artwork of them on the stage with the, cape name change reveal at the end of the chapter and stuff, but, I think this is much less likely to get play. It's really good. Oh, Vic says, thanks, my character designs are like playing telephone with myself. Yeah. But, I don't know. I think it has generally been really good. And just being able to build up more of the more background stuff that you have to work with, the better that the future art is, because you keep being able to draw on the old stuff, or at least that's how I feel. Well, I was sort of giving it a minute to see if anyone else would show up before saying the audience participation reminder, but as the audience participation reminder for today, it is to come up with an alternate cape name for Taylor. Switching over to the final image there. And I mean, I really love the lighting and shadow in this, and even seeing the shading change on the keyboard, being semi-lit up by the screen was really nice. Oh, Greg, yes, you're here. Well, I'll just say the audience participation question again real quick. It was the alternate cape name for Taylor. Well, two's enough. We gotta move on to the themes section. The themes of this chapter, they subvert the theme of escalation by de-escalating everything and ending the conflict. Amazing stuff for parrot humans. This is quite a big leap. So yes, de-escalation is a theme. Finally, compromise is a theme, because they actually compromise in this. Taylor gives ground, and so do the heroes. I mean, again, excellent work on everyone's part. Is a round of applause for all of them. They've never done so well in their cape careers before. Usually, it's just keep punching. Anyway, so the scene begins with Taylor sort of she's setting the stage for us, the audience. She's looking at the dragon craft. There's two of them. There's the extreme contrast between Dragon's craft, which is very stable in the air and can perfectly stay in place practically, and is a very sleek, long design that's clearly delicate and meant to be further out. And then Defiant's thing is like a bulky tank that she imagines would just land next to him and start stomping around, It's good to have a semi-autonomous vehicle where you're flying around in it, and then if you have to bail, it just keeps fighting and clawing at things for you. So That's always nice. Hopefully the Dragoncraft can be successful, because we're going to need them. So Taylor is coming to the realization that she already realized last chapter something had gone horribly wrong, and she'd been tricked, and now she's like, a mistake, I said. And then Defiant elucidates that all of them have worked under each of the Triumvirate members, and that they learned how Alexandria interrogates people, and that this was kind of standard operating procedure for her, which, that's just great. So she's been doing like weird ploys and stuff like this on people all the time, theoretically. And then she cold reads people, like they're saying, like micro expressions. But that she bit off more than she could chew for the first time ever, and it has all gone wrong. Miss Militia's in the conversation, and she kind of, she's like, oh, and here I was, thinking you didn't have a head for this sort of thing, Defiant. Yeah, she gets that voice right now, because she's being sassy. And then Defiant, he's basically just like, it's just Dragon. Dragon's just telling me how to be a better person. It's fine. And then, Taylor's like, she didn't get either of the outcomes she was looking for. She didn't get me, and she didn't get leverage on me. Vic says, again, not a great move to repeatedly tell a long-range cape your greatest weakness. Yeah. Alexandria just kept telling Taylor, there's only one way I can die, and you'll never pull it off. But then she did. Ron Howard voice. If you're ever like setting yourself up for where like Arrested Development Ron Howard could do like a funny narration moment, you're about to get owned. So that's what should have really tipped her off, is that it would be dramatic and ironic. She thought they'd use water to try and drown her. This is what Vic's saying, you'll never figure out my greatest weakness. Bugs in throat. My other greatest weakness, bugs in lungs. Anyway. So, they're saying like Defiant is saying, oh, this is just like when I was using my lie detector on you. It couldn't seem to pick up when you were lying, or like get a read on you, because it was going off bad data or whatever. And I think it's kind of different. It's a little different, because in the lie detector situation, she was just only saying things she believed to be truths or whatever. It's not really that the lie detector had a misread on her. It's that like they kept running into each other at like really distinct turning point moments. So even that assessment, I think, is a little wrong from Defiant's perspective. But when Taylor thinks to herself, an eerie parallel to mistakes Tattletale had made in the past, and I killed Alexandria and Tag because of it, I read that as like thinking of Tattletale playing with fire and being worried about her. But maybe other people are reading that other ways. And, they guarantee that the Undersiders are fine. Those were body doubles that they had used. The real Undersiders are still going to attack in 15 minutes when the sun sets. This is terrible. And from this point, Defiant has like a ticking clock down. He'll, every once in a while, someone will reference how long they have left, and Defiant will correct them with a lower number, which I do find funny. And then they have not only the Undersiders ready to attack in a literal physical sense, but they also have Kaye ready to information attack because he had somehow gotten his hands on the footage of the interrogation. Which I have to imagine, like, that's got to be a Tattletale play, right? Am I crazy? How else would he get his hands on that footage? I don't know. And so they talk about how Dragon is stopping people from digitally communicating that Alexandria is dead, but the word is out just anyway. They're saying they can't stop word of mouth, and I guess they don't fully know the word is out, but it gets confirmed for them in a minute. So there's all sorts of time constraints. They gotta really figure it out. Taylor's saying that they should let everything leak and let the public know everything. Miss Militia's like, that's not really gonna work. Like, that's a bad idea. And then Taylor tries to justify it by, like, the system is, this is one of those quotes I'll just go into. She goes, "The system is fucked. Everything that's happened, it's taught me a few things. People are fucked up, for one thing. And any organization that has people in control is going to be fucked on an exponential level. But for all that, people are a hell of a lot tougher than we give them credit for. We survive. We innovate. So yeah, I'm seriously thinking along those lines. I wouldn't mind seeing the PRT burn, damn it, because I think we'll make it regardless." But I would say, in my own perspective, against Taylor's perspective, that the idea that you can't have any organizations because the people on top will always be because it will always have people in control, like, so, like, you also shouldn't be leading people, I guess. I don't know. It's just like, clearly that doesn't mesh with how things work. Like, you're gonna need to have organizations to do anything to stop, like, the Endbringers, whatever. You're gonna need something for that. And like, even if we say, like, oh, the PRT's bad, we're gonna, like, burn down the PRT, whatever. The idea that any organization that has people in control is going to be fucked on an exponential level, it's just like, so we can't work. I think you're just overreacting right now, Taylor. The idea that we can't have any organization of people is bananas. Luckily they changed her mind in this conversation. Because right now she's just like, no one should work with anyone. Yeah, then Ms. Militia asks what changed since she turned herself in. She says, like, your inaction was part of it. Well, it's, you were part of it. I didn't do anything. Exactly. And then Miss Militia is basically like, hey, look, you didn't tell me anything. You did not bring me in on this, and you just expected me to do a certain thing. But I had no way of knowing what you wanted from me, which is, like, the same thing you were doing, like Alexandria was doing to me. And then all Taylor can do is frown at this, and then Miss Militia goes on. Vic says, Miss Militia is so relatable here. She's like, what do you want from me? Yeah, no, I mean, it's good. It's good. That's, like, one of the best responses to Taylor. It's just like, what are you expecting here? So, then we get Miss Militia talking her down and actually, like, bringing things back to compromise. And then Defiant puts, like, basically throws the ball to Taylor after Miss Militia's done talking. And, oh, no. It goes to Miss Militia saying that they need to have the team stand down. And then, Taylor gives another meet me halfway. They start arguing some more. And, like, Defiant is saying how it is risky for her friends because once the fight starts, it'll be a real fight. And Taylor's saying this is the time to be hard-nosed. and then they get Chevalier on the phone like seconds later. Like, Dragon is being a great facilitator here. Um, and Chevalier agrees to the demand that Miss Militia will become the PRT director, but the way that they're going to handle it is she'll be the interim PRT director. Then they will, like, use leverage to keep her in that position and then make it permanent later. And Miss Militia says, I feel like my lifespan just got cut short. And that makes sense, given all the recent PRT director murders. Who could say what keeps happening to all these PRT directors? Who could even say? But then basically that concession from Chevalier to put Miss Militia in charge of the PRT is what gets Taylor to agree to call Tattletale. She calls Tattletale, and I really like this detail. When Tattletale didn't pick up on the first ring, I felt my heart jump into my throat. She'd never done that. And I think it's so funny because this is the one time she's not like calling from her own number. It's like, Tattletale picks up that fast because it's you. Vic says, as long as Taylor doesn't kill her, she'll be fine. She'll just have to do everything Taylor asks for all the time. Simple. Oh, man. Yeah. Oh, Taylor. It's kind of funny in a way. It's like, hey, Miss Militia, you know how I keep killing PRT directors? Well, I have a very lucrative opportunity for you. How would you feel about being in the position of the PRT director of Brockton Bay? Oh, man. She just gets more and more of, like, movie mobster voice. That'll be what happens over time, yes. So, you know, Tattletale starts it off with something sassy, but when Taylor talks, she goes, you! You know, much like, what's that guy? I'm thinking of that old rap song that's like, do, do, do. Yeah, that one. So yeah, she's flipping out. She says they gave you bad info, and then now Taylor knows. And then she's like, the stuff you were writing, it didn't match up. I tried to tell you, but you couldn't understand me. They confirm everyone's safe. Then there's sort of, Tattletale kind of keeps cutting her off, but she tells them that she needs them to delay for a half hour, and you know, there's some back and forth about how some of the mercenaries they've hired will basically just leave the city because they got paid like half before, half after for the job kind of thing, and they're just like, you know, it's probably better to get paid to not be in a fight than get paid double to be in a fight. Which, fair. Being in a cape fight is always dangerous. Nobody knows what will come to the table last second. You know what I mean? Hidden tricks up sleeves and so forth. So she says she can hold them off for a half an hour, which will be 15 minutes after the original, like after sundown. And then they can't get any longer for now. She confirms that Alexandria is dead, and then Tattletale can tell like right away that it was Taylor. This is really well done in the audiobook, because like actually more like quiet half words come out after guys is like, you did it, guys, and then like the half of a sentence is garbled off the phone. So again, great voice acting work by Rain, great choices in the audiobook. And then they're like, don't tell them, which is like It made me think of Vic, actually. No, don't tell them. And everybody's flipping out. You know, Regent and Imp are emphatically in favor of this. Tattletale's back on the phone. She's like, word's already out about Alexandria. Oh yeah, Vic says it reminded me of the teens in Gideon. Yeah, even the way I was kind of selling it. No! Magnus, no! Don't talk about us! Please, Magnus! Oh man, yeah. They're so funny. The horrible teens. So then, as a you know, collaboration, show of good faith, what have you, Taylor relays on to the others that the word's out about Alexandria, and then Tattletale asks if there's more she can do. Taylor says to stay near a phone, and then, you know, thinks but doesn't say the line. Like, this is another fun moment where she goes, and keep the jailbird specialists on hand. And so they start negotiating again, saying they need to get the official word out. What do you even say? She's dead. And Miss Militia's saying they need to talk about how they have other ideas. And then Taylor keeps bringing it back to, like, we really can't work around lying to the public about whether she's alive or dead. And then Defiant says that they can use the Dragoncraft to, like, get the people on board. Expendable, versatile, devastating in their own right. And there's image attached to them. They'll get the public's imagination fired up. He's like, it's a cool robot, guys. Have you even looked at it? And then Miss Militia talks about how the Behemoth and the Seamerg both have direct ways of combating the Dragoncraft, and they need to convince the heroes who will, like, know about what that's like. Defiant brings up how, like, Alexandria alone makes a noticeable difference in the fights. And that, like, she's been an important factor in, like, 4 different Seamerg fights and a Leviathan fight. Like, aside from just the normal amount, apparently to some bigger degree. Probably because, like, the Seamerg, if she was actually powers immune, then the Seamerg scream might not, like, affect her. I don't know. I don't know if she can, like, not hear the scream, which would be pretty useful. Anyway, now that's some side content that I want to see just for my own sick curiosity. I want to see a Seamerg fight from the standpoint of Alexandria. That would be a fun chapter for me. Vic says she hears the scream, but it just sounds like cool opera the whole time. So it really pumps her up, and she actually fights. Yeah. She's jazzed about the scream, actually. And then Miss Militia's like, we can, like, if we use the right words, and if Skitter calls off her other dogs, then we'll be able to reduce the impact of the loss, at least as far as PR goes. Taylor kind of agrees, and then they're surprised there are no more demands. She calls Kaye, and she starts, she gets off a quip that she actually says out loud, which I think is great. You gotta say some of these out loud, or everyone's gonna think you're just not even good at quips or whatever. She goes, but I'm extending the benefit of a doubt again, and hoping it doesn't come back to bite me in the ass again. Oh no. Greg hit us about the Seamerg song with the "Sing for me, my angel of music." Anyway. Man, if I didn't play that, I really missed an opportunity. When the Seamerd comes up again, I may have to play a very brief clip of Phantom of the Opera. Um, so Kaye answers the phone. He's very pleased to hear from Taylor. Ah, excellent. I'd fear they'd executed you or sent you to be incarcerated. I just love how cash he always is about everything. I'm sorry for that, I said. And then Kaye assures us yet again, rest assured, Miss Hebert, I've dealt with worse. Which I always find funny. Especially because, I think forgetting this line being said again, last stream, Vale had been joking about how he hadn't dealt with worse at this point, but he's just like, nah, some of my clients, they melt people. Things happen. And then Taylor's telling him that he's got to stop the information leak that he's got waiting for if they don't release her. And he says, no can do, I'm afraid. And then he makes the good point that they've kind of got her in an emotionally vulnerable state and still in their custody. And then he thinks that she could still be being coerced. And then so he agrees to meet with them in person. Before Taylor says to Dragon where he is, then the craft is already pulling away to pick him up. And then let's see here. They move back to talking about their game plan. They're bringing suits into the city for the press conference so that they can have more of a show of force. And then Chevalier is coming into the city. He's going to be here before the press conference. They've contacted a bunch of media, so as many outlets as can make it, they're going to be there. And then they talk about how Skitter's role in this is important, and she goes, my role? I thought you wanted me to call off the attack. No, there's more. I narrowed my eyes, very conscious of the fact that there were 3 rather powerful capes and 1 mechanized suit in my immediate vicinity. What more? And then they tell her that they want her to be there for the conference with the media. They want her to help them shape the narrative. And then they kind of talk about how they are gonna do some lies. And then she says that they're lying. And oh wait, I'm sorry. This is Miss Militia saying the plan that they're going to have her there, and they're using an edited version of the footage to they're really pulling out all the stops to make this look like it's one way, even though it's kind of another. So they're making it look like Alexandria's just been a traitor this whole time, which arguably she has been. Your mileage may vary, but they're really leaving some things out on purpose. And then she asks why they would want her to be there, and then it's basically well, if both sides, enemies in the eyes of the public, are agreeing on what happened, it lends way more legitimacy. And then Taylor's been asking some questions. She asks when she says you're lying, then Miss Militia says we're revising the truth. Then says yes, we're lying. Then when she says, are you fighting to keep the PRT going, or are you working to rebuild it? Rebuild it, she said. No hesitation. And you're doing it by starting with a lie, just like they did. Yes. Again, there was no hesitation. And then, she makes a good argument for the fact that there is no perfect solution, but they need to make some concessions to make this work. And then Taylor says, and this is a big event, a lot of power. Big concessions? Yes, she said. And then she thinks, I think this is another good part. I know I'm reading a lot of it, but I don't care. I folded my arms. I couldn't disagree. I didn't like it, but I'd been a leader. I'd made shady calls. I'd hurt people, had lied, cheated, stolen, killed. And she realizes that the sun is down, and she is trying to estimate the how much time they have left. And, Defiant and Dragon and Miss Militia are talking briefly. She's not really listening in. She's, spacing out. And she's, observing Defiant, and she describes his stance as a warrior's stance, to which I could only think of Worf drinking prune juice and going, a warrior's drink. And then she thinks of her very first night out in costume, meeting Arms Master, and she thinks about turning the negative into a positive, and then she sort of she's thinking about it. She cuts into their conversation. Hey, heads turn my way. As far as Alexandria goes, what if we turn it around? Turn it around? And then she explains how even before she had been out in costume, she had always been trying to turn negatives into positives. And then, she had seen Defiant do that and Arms Master, and been impressed with it. Oh, Vic says, OMG, cringe scene. Taylor's lying skill coming in clutch. That could be me someday. Heart. Yeah. It'll be critical that you're good at lying from having spent a lifetime of telling minor lies for no reason. And then this is when she goes, so long as we're lying, let's go wholesale. We present Alexandria as a villain, as the villain she was. And then Taylor's got a really far stance on this, and then Miss Militia's we can't really do that, and then Taylor's we just gotta present it right, and then they sort of stop for a moment because Kai arrives in the dragon suit, and he's like, oh, I hate being in enclosed spaces and flying and heights. And then whew, never let it be said that my job isn't an adventure. You're well, Miss Hebert? And then he asks if she's made concessions, which she hasn't. And then they go into Dragon's Dragoncraft, and they sort of open a drawer, and, Dragon still can't talk, so she's wordlessly leading Taylor in. She's very gentle. And then she and Kaye both look at this drawer as it opens, and what is in it? It doesn't say right here, but it's the dang costume that they want her to wear as a hero. It's the hero costume. Yeah, and so he assumes that they've reached some kind of an understanding already. She's like, I'm not sure. Defiant's like, yes, we have. And then Kaye insists that they drop some paperwork. Miss Militia gives him a 5-minute deadline, and he's like, paper, fast! And then, it's too bad they don't hand him paper. I bet he's even faster than he is typing. His hand's like a whip crack flying across there with the pen. But instead, he has to type. Terrible. And then he gets another quip off because Kaye is a quip machine. I'll credit you this, Miss Hebert. You manage a great deal of grief and chaos in very short spans of time. And of course, a classic page break to switch scenes. And it is, 15 minutes later, Chevalier had arrived and stepped into the cockpit. They're all talking, and then Chevalier makes sure Taylor's ready. They're all about to go out on stage together. Taylor has put on, I mean, it doesn't say this, but we'll know in a second. Taylor has put on her new costume that's a hero costume, and then over top of it has put on the prison sweats and prison sweatshirt. And so that she'll get to do a dramatic reveal. Classic character quip, Kaye. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Greg. And then, Kaye is looking at his work, and he's basically like, this is a pretty rough job. I only had 5 minutes. But they call the Undersiders, and she tells them to call off all the mercenaries and to turn on the TV. And so she hangs up before they talk anymore. The wards are there. We realize that it truly is only the 4 of them. Clockblocker, Vista, Kidwin, and Crucible. They just have not replenished their ranks. They forgot to replenish! And then, I guess maybe I think they're on stage. It's unclear to me if the wards are just nearby or if they're on the stage, but I like to believe they're on the stage. And then, they've got this brightly lit stage that's flanked by a bunch of dragon suits and stuff. I guess they're using the dragon suit's wing as like the ledge that they're standing on, which is kind of cool. And then Chevalier stepped forward, and all the reporters become silent as they watch. And he goes and tells them that Alexandria was killed. Apparently, all the media was in the know because they're still all silent. None of them are looking shocked at all. And then, for as much as Chevalier always says how he's terrible at speeches, he's always good at them, actually. Alexandria was a veteran among capes. She was one of the first capes, and one who was present for almost every major catastrophe in the last 20 years. With every challenge she surmounted, she reaffirmed our belief in her, showed us how strong she was, how impervious and noble she was. And then he goes, if that was it, this would be hard enough, but she was a mythic figure in her own way. She was a living symbol, recognized across the world. She was a leader among us. She was a friend to some of us. And she was a traitor. And then that's when everyone's shocked. Oh my god. And Eidolon's flying around, legends up in the air above this. Dovetail showed up, so did Seer. People are flying around outside of the view of the cameras or the lights. Capes love flying around. Vic says she was a mythic bitch, like from Heathers. Yeah. God. I personally don't associate the word mythic with Heathers, but I accept that to you, she was a mythic bitch. Yeah. When Alexandria was slain earlier today, it was done by individuals standing on the stage. I like how that's... Taylor even thinks that it's, like, technically not true, but it's like, you did put a plural on that. It wasn't multiple people. But it's close enough. And then Chevalier is talking about how they kind of learned about this, and how when they defeated the classified threat a month ago, it was a nascent Endbringer, and that Alexandria was partially responsible. Oh! And then talks about the splintering of the PRT, and how the many capes felt like they couldn't go up against Alexandria. And then apparently the crowd just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Like, people who are anywhere in the vicinity are kind of like like slowly drifting into the crowd, and people are like parking their cars at the periphery of the whole scene, and let's see here. She thinks about how there are like millions of people watching this, and then Chevalier basically he's going on to say how he doesn't blame any groups, the ones who stayed or the ones who left, because they were all basically in a bind because the PRT and the Protectorate are so necessary from most of their perspectives. Taylor senses Atlas has been brought into her range, so he's in. It is this scene, and she says that she can tell how he's like basically dying. He's very weary. He's like some sort of representation of this era of her life and how it's almost over. And then she moves Bugs into the window so that she can sense the occupants of the van. Lisa, Brian, Alec, and Aisha. I could hear the echo, time delayed by 5 seconds, as they watched Chevalier's speech on a tablet PC. And then, let's see here. So, Chevalier's still doing his thing, saying that Alexandria had betrayed them, and that it was like they had all thought that she was immune to the Seamerg's powers, but it's because of her super brain that she was able to hide what she was doing for so long. And they let us know a direct figure. She was in 18 fights against the Seamerg, so she was hearing that sweet, sweet opera 18 different times. She's like, give me a little more of that battle juice, that Seamerg song. Oh, Greg says it's a line from the musical. Yeah, the mythic bitch. Well, yeah. But even if it was a line from the movie, which I have seen, I would still not recognize a Heather's line. Unless it was grant me a boon, because people say that so fucking often. Oh, Vic says this could possibly not be a lie. Maybe the Seamerg thought slowly corrupting her would cause more long-term damage. Yeah, that could be true. I just think... I don't think there's a way for them to know one way or the other, and I think that it's more... it feels more story-rich to me if Alexandria was corrupted and she really is immune to the Seamerg's power. And the corruption didn't have to do with the Seamerg, but with the lifestyle and the compromises she made. Oh, it's I crave a boon. Yeah. But yes, I think Alexandria, just on a very human level, did a bunch of stuff and then changed over time. But from Taylor's perspective, she definitely says, and there's the first egregious lie. And then she thinks about how they're leaving out tons of the information about what Alexandria did. She goes, I knew what came next. And then this is when Chevalier gives it was due to a concerted effort this evening that we were able to stop Alexandria before more damage could be done. And then Chevalier puts his hand on Taylor's shoulder and then sort of scoots her into the spotlight like a small dog that's not wanting to be scooted. I've got to sit right here, says the Boston Terrier. And then he talks about how Taylor Hebert played a role in confronting Alexandria. And then Taylor thinks about how half the world will hate her now, and that she had actually agreed to share credit. Again, this does it rhymes, like all good art, it rhymes, with the beginning of the story where she's talking about all these things like a dragon man on a roof, it starts with a lie, the sharing of credit, like all this stuff. It's kind of like she's just doing a bigger scale version. Like her misunderstanding of the way that Lung's gang, like Lung had said that they were going to shoot kids, but it was actually the teenage Undersiders. Her misunderstanding of what was happening with Alexandria. Like I know that one was a miscommunication and one was a deliberate ruse, but I still think that like the reckless attack because of something she thought was going to happen that wasn't actually real. Like, I think that's all very, like, I think there's some there is what I'm saying. And it's also, like, that was the start of, like, that moment talking to Armsmaster was more or less the start of her heel turn, and this is more or less the start of her face turn. So, few wrestlers really have a compelling enough storyline that they can do a heel turn and a face turn, and you're gonna be along for the ride. You're not gonna just be like, I'm over it. No more Eddie Guerrero storylines for me. And even like the Chapter 5 is where the fight happens. Chapter 6 is where the conversation happens, kind of structure of the first arc in this arc. Obviously, this arc is considerably longer, but anyway, I'm getting distracted, but I hadn't thought about that until now, and I'm glad that I did. So, yes, she shares credit. She sees that the, like, lapel mic or whatever kind of microphone that Dragon put on her is, like, it's, like, on now. It has, like, a live light. And so that's on, and then she had sort of pre-prepared lines, so she's trying to remember what she was supposed to say, but she's getting sort of caught up in the moment. And then before she said anything, Chevalier sort of gets her back on track. There's a kind of an awkward pause, and he goes, "This isn't a happy day." And then he says, "It's not a happy day, but a good day." And then he's sort of justifying it in the speech, saying that they'll be able to fight Endbringers without having to watch their back and worry about sabotage. And then I like the fact that more Dragoncraft are just showing up mid-speech and like kind of swooshing the air around near them. She had more made, I thought. It's kind of funny. It's like, well, of course she would have more made. But yes, Chevalier gives a bit more speech and then finally says, "And new allies, as unlikely as they might be." And then finally, still having not said anything, Skitter takes off her prison clothes, and underneath the prison clothes, she's wearing an electric blue and white costume. What? She's Weaver now. What? And then, well, I guess it's light gray instead of black. But it's still hero colors instead of villain colors, basically. Vic says, Chev is so good at public speaking. Yeah, and like his trademark is saying how bad he is at public speaking right before being good at it. Vic is like, I was so unimpressed when I heard Weaver for the first time. I think it's fine. Vic says, William had done a great job, or a good job keeping it under wraps, so I was shocked at the name choice. Yeah, I don't think that I revealed the name. I feel like there was this thing where I took a picture of a all the Coke cans for a while had different names on them, and I literally, for real, found an Alexandria right next to a Weaver, and I think I still have a picture of that somewhere. But I was just like shocked. Um, and I think I almost broke and sent you that, but I kept it in reserve. I'm not sure if I ever sent that to you later, but um, but yes, she does this thing, and then she floops. I think she floops on the hood and everything. Let's see here. Yes, she pulls on the new mask. And then she says, well, she starts her speech. She's saying that she did bad stuff and maybe she'll go to jail. She pauses. She's worried she won't be able to, like, continue the speech. But then she focuses on the Undersiders van, and then she sort of pulls it together. She says how she seized local territory, led the local villains, was secure in her position, had all the wealth, friendship, love, and respect. And then it was like, she's basically saying, I was where I wanted to be, but there were bigger things, more important things. And then I like this line. The eyes and cameras made me feel like I was deep in the ocean, a crushing weight pressing down on me. And she says how she believes in the new PRT, and that she's willing to throw herself possibly even into the birdcage for this belief. Like, that's how down she is for this. That she's putting everything on the line for this. And she's hoping that a villain changing to, again, having this face turn will change the minds of some. And then she says, given the chance, I'll serve the people. As I fought Leviathan and the Slaughterhouse 9 and other evils, I'll fight to the last gasp to protect all of you. When... And then she's cut off. A howling in the distance. And it's all the dogs, and they're all... Ooh! And all the normal dogs start barking throughout the whole city, too. And then... she's able to pull it together. She doesn't start crying or anything, but she goes, and if I do take up the job, you can call me Weaver. And then this is when Vic is super unimpressed. It's like, you can call me Weaver. I think the delivery that Rain gives in this chapter is just fine. There is I forget if it's in the next chapter or the one after it. I think it's in the one after it, but it's yeah, it's gotta be, right? Next. Oh no, it is the very next interlude, the Charlotte chapter. That I really like overall the reading of the chapter, but and you can call me Weaver. It's just like, it's not it. When she does the Taylor thing for one sentence. Vic says, she starts singing Karma by Jojo Siwa. See, I'm not familiar with the works of Jojo Siwa. I'm only vaguely familiar with the cringe of Jojo Siwa. I'm not in the know with the kids. I'm not a Ute. I'm much closer to being a, decrepit Steve Buscemi saying, hello, fellow teens. Oh, God damn it. Vic says, I've been a bad girl. I've done some bad things. Okay. Yeah, if that's the lyrics, then that exact line vaguely fits. I'll allow it this time. But yes, Chevalier lets her off the hook. He says to the gathered media that they'll have another statement and a press conference to answer questions tomorrow, when they know more, for sure. And all these questions start calling out, from the reporters. It's just everyone wants to know so many things because there's clearly a lot of unanswered questions. And then she gets led away out of the spotlight, and then Defiant, once they're inside they're inside of Dragon's ship, and he says, "You stumbled, improvised, but that was good. You know you can't stay here. There's a conflict of..." And then Dragon's like, cool it. And then she shushes him, and then she gives Taylor a hug, and it's so sweet. Dragon gives her a hug. It is very sweet, but in this moment, I'd like to make fun of it. She was cold to the touch, hard and unyielding, but she still managed a motherly embrace. My face pressed against her shoulder, I found myself glad that my mask hid my face from view. Taylor's all crying, and she's like, "It's a terrible day for rain!" And they're like, "We're inside." That bit only works if you're outside, Taylor. We have come to the end of the chapter. It is a great ending to the main series chapters of Arc 22. So, I don't have any joking new things that Cell is referring to, like last chapter when it was referring to Tag's cell phone. Yeah, I think that this was like an excellent capstone. I really like the conversation between Taylor and the three heroes on the roof, like all their little negotiations, and like it felt really realistic that each side was able to convince the other to the degree that they did. It felt like really organic and like something that could happen, I guess. Which is probably one of the hardest things to balance. Like, getting something like this to feel like they've been enemies a long time. Like, yeah, the three people on that roof were probably the three most sympathetic people out of everyone from the hero side to Taylor. But even so, like, there was a big gap to bridge, and like to get Taylor to agree to the thing she agreed to would have been like super tough. So I don't know. The fact that Wildbow was able to pull this whole sequence off in an organic, good feeling way for the reader, I just thought it was pretty amazing, pretty great. Like I've said, this whole arc, I've had that weird like Way of the Warrior Worf thing going on, where my brain's like, we were like the heroes of ancient legend, or whatever the hell he says. Vic says, the end with the howling is so emotional. Yeah. When she has to leave, and there's the dogs howl, and then they move off, and it's very, very good. It's almost like it's so funny because when Wildbow does stuff, it's like he threads the needle so well that my brain is like, I can't actually come up with like how else this chapter would have like looked to keep the book on track with like what it's trying to do, kind of. Like, obviously you could ping in like a million different directions. You could keep her still a villain. Like, she could go back to the Underside. Like, I don't know. There's so many different things you could do, but sometimes like when somebody's done a story so well, you see what they chose to do and you're like, I can't imagine it another way. And that's kind of how I am with this segment, where I'm just like, it was so perfect to me. Anyway, and I'm really glad that, like I said at the beginning, that this is the art. Like, as emotional as the howling might be, like, them in this, like, their like slumped posture and their general demeanor, and I don't know, it's real good. Have I ever told you guys that I'm a big fan of the art on this stream? Oh, and Vic with a TY. Yeah, I don't know. I guess moving on to the characters. We'll start with some peripheral characters. We'll say Chevalier. He's our first most peripheral character. I really like that he jumps in and he, like, the first thing that he's doing in the conversation is, I guess he's not the most peripheral, but he is still the one I'm going to talk about now. He's like immediately ready to make a concession when he gets on the phone. He starts with a concession, which, like, that has just not been how any of these other conversations have gone. Like, he opens up with a concession that the other people on the roof haven't been willing to make. So, like, strong opening arguments from Chevalier. And I think he's basically, like, from jump, he's like, I'm going to be honest with you, Taylor. It's going to be like, I'm willing to put a foot, like, very far in. Like, I am not just dipping my toe into the water. I'm, like, trying to meet you halfway into this river. So, good stuff. Chevalier, we love him. We think he's a champion. When he gives that speech on the wing of the Dragoncraft, we all think he's the best. It's like, wow, even when Taylor's messing up, you're keeping everything going. And, you know, I mean, like, in the past we could have been like, well, he's homies with Armsmaster, so we hate that guy because all my homies hate Armsmaster. But then now we're like, well, he's homies with Defiant. And, you know, that's just completely the opposite situation. Where, you know, I really do like Defiant. But yeah, Chevalier, cool guy, cooler leader. Let's talk about all the side characters. Legend shows up. Eidolon. They're, like, hovering like real weirdos. They're like, I can't believe you killed my friend who tried to kill you. And there's a certain amount of, like, are you really that shocked? Are you so surprised? I guess I'm pleased that Eidolon didn't have some, like, very hasty reaction, and didn't do anything to them. But he's got a lot of hate in his heart, I think. An old, crusted heart. Some sort of smallish Grinch heart. Eidolon, Legend. Oh yeah, Dovetail. And Seer there. I wonder what they're thinking. They're like, man, I can't believe they're accepting in this person who keeps fucking with us. And who has already done terrible things to us, even though we've barely even made it to this city. And I know that Clockblocker's kind of made his peace with Taylor to a certain degree, but it's also funny that, like, when she's like, I'm a hero now, then they have one of the guys she put the bugs up his nose on the stage with them. Oh yeah, we'll put the wards. Next up is Clockblocker, Vista. But you gotta imagine you're asking yourself, like, what are the wards thinking? They saw Taylor turn herself in. They talked to Tag. They know that Tag and Alexandria are dead. They were there right before Alexandria, like, was fully dead when she was getting the bugs put in her mouth. Because, like, they're like, oh, the O face. Yeah, I would be shocked too. I would have the colon lowercase o face as well. I guess Kid Win is probably like, yeah, I don't give a fuck what happens. So Kid Win is the only one of them who's not shocked because he never gives a fuck. They literally watched her kill Alexandria, and then they're like, here's your new teammate. Yeah. Look at her. Doesn't she look cool in gray and blue? Oh, man. You know this girl who keeps putting bugs in your mouth? Oh, man. All right, next up is the present but silent dragon. She's a great presence in the chapter. I really like how she's, despite being silent, she's like almost in charge of the situation. She can like play other people's voices. She can always reign in defiant. She is able to like get Taylor to agree to go with her into the craft with no resistance. Vic says Dragon accepts her role as Taylor's mom with that hug. Exactly. Dragon, aka Taylor's mom. And you know what they say? Taylor's mom has got it going on. Next up, and Dragon's even impressing Taylor with just constantly replenishing the dragon craft. See, that's the thing, is that Taylor's surprised because somehow she grew up in a house where you don't have to replenish, but she should have known. Sorry, when somebody brings that up to me, it's like stuck in my head for a while. Vic. Yeah. Defiant is there. He's in like a middle ground from the other people, I would say. Like I do like that each of the heroes has a distinct like idea of the situation. Like he's the one who's saying like, we'll use the dragon craft. We'll just make like a shitload of them. People will be impressed. They look awesome. They can fly up and kick things or shoot big weapons or whatever. They're super versatile because we can equip like any gear to them. And then Miss Militia is just kind of like not good enough, which she's probably actually right. But yeah. Oh, and you know what? I would say that Defiant has begrudgingly become Taylor's Cape Dad. But I will not be writing that AKA. He hasn't earned it like Dragon has. But we will move on, I think, to Miss Militia. You know what? She's getting the formal change. In this, she will be Hana, as she has been many times before. So Hana, she is pivotal in this. Once Chevalier, who's her old bro from back in the day, as we will learn in later chapters. Once Chevalier has agreed to like the concession that they will have Miss Militia be the PRT director, then she sort of decides that, okay, we're gonna like really work. I mean, not that she didn't want to work with Taylor before, but I feel like that was a like turning moment in the way she was handling the situation, and she was just like fully committed to finding a compromise with Taylor now that Taylor had finally conceded something by delaying the Undersiders. They were actually negotiating for the first time. And I mean, I would say Dragon is the first hero to become sympathetic to Taylor, and Miss Militia is the second one. Maybe Defiant, but that's informed by Dragon, so I don't know if that's fair. I think Miss Militia can be counted in my books as the second cape from the hero side, who's like, that Taylor is alright, actually. Because I'm willing to look past the hero-villain nomenclature and try and actually fix some shit, because what's happening right now, it ain't working, Chief. Yeah. I don't know how much more I have to say about her that I haven't said a lot in previous chapters. We all love Miss Militia in this house. The next character to talk about is Quinn Kaye, Esquire. It's funny that Taylor keeps sort of ragging on him. It's like, he's clearly afraid of heights, etc. And then Taylor's like, I wonder why this like big, long-legged man would be so nervous to step into the dragon craft. I'm shorter than him, and I just did it. And it's like, yeah, but you're always jumping off buildings and stuff. This guy's like a lawyer. He doesn't like jumping off buildings. And so it's funny there. Also, the fact that like, regardless of the circumstances, like, he writes up whatever contract they have, however bare bones, in 5 minutes, which I find incredibly funny. It's like, there's a lot of things that are like pseudo unrealistic in parahumans that you can just be like, I was superpowered, it's fine. But Quinn Kaye, no superpowers. He's just like better than everyone else at paperwork. And because it's a parahuman's power, it doesn't have to be used to a destructive end. So I guess moving on from Quinn, don't want to linger too long because I don't have that much to say about him. I just think it's funny that he's like back at the donut shop. He's very nonchalant about like, I thought they might have executed you. Great character, funny guy. We all love him. When he smiles, we swoon. But is there anyone else who's vaguely hero aligned? You know what? Let's go for the media, the press figures. It was interesting to me how they're like shown to have known that Alexandria died, but at the same time that they know that, like when other information comes to light, it's not like, oh, well, we were cued into that as well. It's like clearly like this is the meat of the story. Like, using them, Taylor can really gauge like what the shocking bit was. Even though to most of the world, the fact that Alexandria is dead at all is the shocking bit. But yes, a good showing from the media, even though Brockton Bay has a bad track record with being a reporter and being alive. Also, I like that in the next chapter, we see that Stan Vickery is not wasting his time on this venue. He has gone directly to Skitter's territory. Which is very funny. He's like, I can't get caught up in the rat race doing the same thing as everyone else. Moving on, we've got, I will give each Undersider their own little thing. We've got Rachel. You know what? No, Rachel, you get saved a little later. We'll start with Alec. Look at him lounging there in that image. He looks far more down and depressed than he looked in my mind, because I was thinking that he's like, one day's the same as the next. That type of nonchalance with this happening. But I think it's appropriate if this was like a suitable emotional blow, that even his cool affect would be bypassed. And I like again in the image here, because this is most of what we're getting from these characters. I like that Aisha is like leaning on Brian, and that looks like they're crying together. Because you know what? I really I like the assessment that that Aisha actually really looks up to Taylor, despite everything that sort of happens with them in conflict earlier in the story. I think that like when at the end of the book she sort of, spoilers, Aisha's alive at the end of the book. She sort of is reflecting on things and like thinking about how she wants to move forward. It's clear that she's modeling herself after Taylor. Like, she even verbalizes that to a certain degree. Vic says he's pretending to be cool with it, but he's secretly sad. Yeah, he's trying to lounge in a cool way, but he's lounging in a sad way. And then, yeah, Aisha and Brian, like, obviously this is a big blow to them, but it's like not... They already knew she turned herself in. So to a certain degree, they were on the, they were expecting her to not come back, I guess. But this is more of a permanent thing when she says, I'm a hero now. And then, yeah, this has got to be super hard on Brian, but he has a skull mask to put over his face, or at least a crazy demon face mask, so, you know, he can physically hide his emotion with a motorcycle helmet. I'm just imagining Brian putting on the motorcycle helmet and being like, why am I still feeling my feelings? I'm wearing the helmet. You know, I guess I will move on. Rachel's next. Tattletale's last on this power hour. So you know, Rachel is obviously devastated by what has transpired. She lets it happen, and she doesn't like go hog and like attack anybody, but the dog's howling is a final tribute to Taylor is really good. And I like that the dog's howling is like a representation of everything to Taylor, and it's like it, you know, makes everything well up inside her, and she's like, ah, but she powers through and finishes the speech. I don't know. I don't have that much to say about Rachel here. It's like, we will probably talk about it a lot in the next chapter, where we'll see like an interlude where Rachel and all the Undersiders are in it, and Rachel's like not totally aimless. She's like keeping it together to a certain degree, but she's pretty devastated by all this. As we saw in the like Arc 21 interlude, she was like more upset at the fact that Taylor had turned herself in than at the idea that Taylor had died. So like it's a betrayal regardless, although we will also get to see in a letter from Rachel some very contemplative stuff. All of this makes Rachel think deeply, which is good. It's good that she's thinking first and acting second, for once. And then we get Tattletale. I feel like this is a great expression on her face in the artwork here, like just fully glum, like looking at the screen from above, but she just looks like, I don't know, out of it. How do we go on? I can't believe this is happening. And it's like I said in the Arc 21 stuff, I think that this situation is actually more devastating to Lisa than it is to Rachel. And I think that the Taylor-Lisa connection, despite everything, is stronger than the Taylor-Rachel connection. Even though the Taylor-Rachel thing's more like direct and nonverbal. I just think there's more to her relationship with Lisa. Especially from the Lisa side. Tattletale's all like, who do I focus my trauma on? Who's gonna be my little sister now? And then at the end, final perspective, Taylor. Vic says, Alec is Lisa's next victim. Oh no, she turns him good. That's why. Oh no, what a disaster. She turns him good so quick. This is leading me to believe that Lisa interventions are always negative. But yes, Taylor. I think that this is the like we've said, like I've said this whole time, like I think this is the most compromise Taylor ever puts in. She really is like for her becoming a hero and working for them is like beyond the idea of going to jail. It's like, and it's like funny. It's like an inversion. Like it's almost like the whole story has like a build up section and this wind down section of like the Skitter storyline where it was this slow internal revelation that she like wasn't gonna stop being Skitter, that she wasn't gonna turn in the Undersiders, and then for this one, it's this slow realization that she can't be with the Undersiders, and not that she'll turn them in, but that she has to finally become a hero like she originally had planned. Um, and you know, obviously it's a fairly pivotal moment in Taylor's emotional journey and so forth. But it has all like the groundwork has been laid for so long. She's had so many doubts. This is like such a like Miss Militia and Chevalier's compromise is such a way out for her. Um, it really helps that Dragon created her a fully fabricated costume while driving over. But but yes, I'm trying to think. It feels like there's almost like a story can contain any events, right? Like anything could theoretically happen. Taylor could become a hero in a totally different way. But like this is good because it's like got so much build up and it feels like this change, despite the silly name, is like an expression of Taylor finally like becoming like her like a more embodied version of herself. Um and I don't know. She'll question herself many times as a hero, being like, maybe I was better as a villain. But the truth is, she's actually better as a hero, I think. Because she was basically just doing hero shit with a villain moniker previously, anyway. So, because, you know, let's be real, the heroes do a bunch of shady shit. And even as a hero, she does a bunch of shady shit. So, yes, I think that this was a great evolution, a great direction for the storyline. I'm really glad that around the time that was like just prior to this, like in the story creation, and I say just prior, but it probably would have been months before, when like Arc 19 was happening, uh, Wildbow felt like he had to cut the story short and only like do 25 or so arcs and stuff, and like he was able to, with greater funding, make it the 30 arc length that it is and like expand upon stuff and not have to rush very much. Um, and like it could be argued that some sections are rushed or whatever, but I just think that letting this play out, giving it more time, like having this entire arc where she's locked in the box and then where you know all these crazy things happen that we've discussed in Cell. And I just think it's given the room to breathe that it needs. Some parts of the story do feel too fast for me, like it's too constant event to event. Um, but I think that this part is just like the perfect build and payoff structure. What was I talking about? Taylor, her journey, how cool she is, how she's the best. She's finally a hero now, even though she was a hero all along. Um, I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. Um, moving on to powers, knowledge, and world building. We don't get that much of it. I mean, it's a nice scene to see, like, the way that the people react, like, the media people react to the story. Um, We get like minor touches on like talking about, oh, Alexandria fought the Seamerg 18 times. But overall, it's very powers light. It's very world building light. Like, they're just having characters talk it out and come to a decision, basically. I guess like the most world building thing is like Tattletale talking about how they have mercenaries on standby and how like they'd have to call them off, whatever. But not a big deal either way. I am gonna just move us on to the audience participation. 22.6. Come up with an alternate cape name for Taylor. Obviously, this is because she rebrands to Weaver in this chapter. But I didn't want to just say in the question, so what's a good alternative to Weaver? So that's why I said it how I said it. But we got several and we got 2 answers. That's right. 2 is several now. Although Vic said multiple names. Saying, I like Hive a lot. Something Queen Bee centric, but I think Queen Bee is too cheesy. Swarm is also cool and ominous. Maybe you could go a more biblical route and relate it to the plague of locusts or whatever. She even thinks at the very beginning of the thing that she, like, pestilence is already taken, but, that's the first bit, and then Vic says, she could also go MLP themed and do Fluttershy. Oh my god. My Little Pony does exist in the world of Worm, because I'm pretty sure it's from early enough in the 80s that it still, like, breaks through. I think she's worried about a name like Swarm, like Taylor is, because of, well, you and I see it as cool and ominous. She just sees it as ominous. And they're like, what's a good name that doesn't sound like a villain has that name? And they're right. Weaver's too lame for a villain. Anyway. Greg says, she should have gone with Bug from the get-go. It's perfect. It describes her power. Controls bugs. Things she does. Surveil via insect. And even how she interacts with other capes. She's a real fly in the ointment. Layers. Yes, she definitely should have been Bug. Great name. Tattletale knew from the beginning that her name was Bug. Great name, greater cape. So I myself came up with an answer for this, and I wanted to name her after the like pre-Olympian. It's like a proto-Greek god, Rhea, who is the daughter of Gaia and the mother of the Olympians, including such favorites as Zeus. And one of Rhea's biggest claims to fame as a Titan is hiding Zeus away on Crete. And then there's a cave that supposedly is the cave where she hid Zeus, and there's a great blaze of fire, and then a bunch of bees will spill forth, because the sacred bees were the ones who nursed Zeus. I mean, there's only like a small bug connection, but I think it's really funny that she had the power to use bees as like child nurses to like raise Zeus on bees. So Rhea will be our, and I could be mispronouncing this given that it is, an ancient god from like 4th century and earlier, but all I know is that when the sacred bees take care of Zeus, I think it's pretty cool, actually. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, well, I don't have any more alternate names. There was one, that was like a prince god who was represented by a cicada, but his whole thing was he was like cursed to be immortal, but he wasn't ageless, so he would just wither and age but never die. And I was like, it doesn't really feel very Taylory. I mean, the bees one barely is too, but it was the best I could do. It's hard to come up with a name for Taylor, because she's all, I want to be a hero now and not be called like Pestilence or whatever. Anyway, I think I am about out of steam on that one. I was having trouble coming up with the chapter question for the one with Charlotte, 22.x. So, unless someone says something in the next, minute, I think we're just going to have to wait on the 22.x question. For a bit, I had thought, maybe it could be on Danny, because we see Danny's perspective, and we see all the Undersiders from an outside perspective. But then I thought to myself, it'd really be a waste if I had a chapter question in the Charlotte chapter, and I didn't include Charlotte. She is from what in this book is an underrepresented class, non-capes. So maybe I'll focus it around that in some way. But yes, I will come up with that 22.x question later. And for now, we'll start the intro-outro music. And for good measure, we will watch the speed draw again. So yes, the song you're hearing, as it has been many times before, is Imago by ScarlettXOX. Her work can be found at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. Our Discord server link can be found in the description of the stream and the channel. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parathumans.wordpress.com. There is also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work, again for free, at audioworm.rain-online.org or on any podcatcher that has stuff, including Spotify, you name it. I've never looked for it on a podcatcher and not found it, so yeah, there's that. Generally, goodbye to the people who are still in this stream. Anyone still listening? I am grateful that people are still attending the stream. Interested? Greg says cheers. Cheers, Greg. And I will talk to you on the next stream.